3248. Which instrument will become inoperative if the pitot tube becomes clogged? A. Altimeter. B. Vertical speed. C. Airspeed. The correct answer is C. If the pitot tube becomes clogged, the airspeed indicator will become inoperative. The pitot tube measures the dynamic pressure of the airflow, which is used to calculate the airspeed. When the pitot tube is blocked, the airspeed indicator will no longer receive accurate airflow information and will not be able to display the correct airspeed reading. The altimeter and vertical speed indicator are not directly affected by the pitot tube and will continue to function properly. 3249. Which instrument will become inoperative if the static vents become clogged? A. Airspeed only. B. Altimeter only. C. Airspeed, altimeter, and vertical speed. The correct answer is C. If the static vents become clogged, the airspeed, altimeter, and vertical speed indicators will become inoperative. The static vents provide static pressure to these instruments, which is essential for their accurate operation. The airspeed indicator relies on the difference between the pitot, dynamic, pressure, and static pressure to determine airspeed. The altimeter uses static pressure to measure the aircraft's altitude, and the vertical speed indicator uses changes in static pressure to indicate the rate of climb or descent. If the static vents are clogged, the instruments will not receive the necessary static pressure inputs and will not provide accurate readings. 3247. If the pitot tube and outside static vents become clogged, which instruments would be affected? A. The altimeter, airspeed indicator, and turn and slip indicator. B. The altimeter, airspeed indicator, and vertical speed indicator. C. The altimeter, attitude indicator, and turn and slip indicator. The correct answer is B. If both the pitot tube and outside static vents become clogged, the instruments that rely on both dynamic, pitot, and static pressure inputs will be affected. These instruments include the altimeter, airspeed indicator, and vertical speed indicator. The altimeter uses static pressure to measure the aircraft's altitude. Without accurate static pressure input, the altimeter reading will be unreliable. The airspeed indicator relies on the difference between pitot, dynamic, pressure, and static pressure to determine the aircraft's airspeed. If both the pitot tube and static vents are clogged, the airspeed indicator will not receive the necessary pressure inputs and will not provide accurate readings. The vertical speed indicator, VSI, measures the rate of climb or descent based on changes in static pressure. When the static vents are clogged, the VSI will not receive the necessary pressure changes and will not provide accurate vertical speed indications. 3262. The pitot system provides impact pressure for which instrument? A. Altimeter. B. Vertical speed indicator. C. Airspeed indicator. The correct answer is C. The pitot system provides impact pressure for the airspeed indicator. The pitot tube, which is mounted on the aircraft's exterior, measures the dynamic pressure of the air as the aircraft moves through it. This dynamic pressure, also known as impact pressure, is then transmitted to the airspeed indicator inside the cockpit. The airspeed indicator uses the impact pressure from the pitot tube and compares it to the static pressure, which is provided by the static ports, to determine the aircraft's airspeed. By measuring the difference between the impact pressure and the static pressure, the airspeed indicator displays the indicated airspeed to the pilot. 3006. Which V-speed represents maneuvering speed? A. VA. B. Velo. C. VNE. The correct answer is A. Maneuvering speed, also known as VA, is the maximum speed at which abrupt control inputs can be made without exceeding the aircraft's structural limitations. It is the speed at which the aircraft can be maneuvered to its full deflection of control surfaces, ailerons, elevators, and rudder, without risking structural damage. VA is specific to each aircraft and is determined by the manufacturer. It is typically presented as a designated airspeed in knots and is indicated on the aircraft's airspeed indicator.